All right, ready to dive into a new career.
Always.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
This time, we're getting our hands metaphorically coated in lacquer.
Lacquer. Intriguing. Tell me more.
We're exploring the career of a lacquer maker, and our source material is from RoleCatcher.
Okay, RoleCatcher sounds interesting. They focus on career development, right?
They do, it's a really cool platform, and they have all these guides, interview tips, even insights into how AI is changing the hiring game, all focused on this lacquer maker path.
I'm especially curious about that AI aspect. It's amazing how it's touching everything these days.
Totally. But first, let's answer the basic question. What does a lacquer maker actually do?
Yeah, because when I think lacquer, I think, furniture, maybe a fancy car finish,
Hmm,
but I don't really know much beyond that.
right. Same here. But going through RoleCatcher, I was struck by how much artistry is involved. It's not just about mixing chemicals in a factory.
Really? They make it sound more artistic.
Yeah, like almost alchemy. They talk about how lacquer makers are controlling these delicate chemical reactions to create very specific finishes.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about mixing paint. It's about understanding the chemistry and how to manipulate it.
Exactly. Consistency is key, especially with today's high-tech finishes. And that's where the artistry comes in, I think.
Fascinating. So they're like master chefs, but instead of food, their creations end up on furniture and cars.
A perfect analogy. They take raw ingredients, resins, pigments, solvents, and using their knowledge of chemical properties, they whip up these precise formulas.
And then those mesmerizing jar mills I always see in pictures. Those are key to this whole process, right?
Absolutely. They ensure that every batch of lacquer is perfectly homogenized.
Homogenized meaning, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following.
Of course, it means that the mixture is completely uniform with no clumps or variations in consistency. It's super important for achieving a smooth and even finish.
That makes sense, yeah. Everything has to be just right.
Exactly. Think about it. A tiny variation in the mixture could mean the difference between a vibrant, durable finish and a complete disaster.
Oof, talk about high stakes. No wonder RoleCatcher emphasizes quality control so much.
It's paramount. Every batch has to meet exacting standards, especially with clients expecting the same high quality time after time.
It makes you appreciate the craftsmanship even more. But all this talk of chemicals and precise formulas makes me wonder about the work environment. It can't all be pristine labs, right?
Unfortunately, no. RoleCatcher paints a picture of manufacturing plants, long hours, and definitely close encounters with potentially hazardous chemicals.
Okay, so those warning labels on paint can suddenly feel very real.
Exactly. This isn't your average desk job. It's serious business.
And safety precautions are non-negotiable in that kind of environment.
Absolutely, they stress that a lot. But on a more positive note, this career path offers a surprising amount of depth.
Depth? In what way?
Well, there are actually different specializations you can pursue within the field of lacquer making.
Oh, like focusing on a particular type of lacquer or a specific industry.
Exactly. It's like choosing your own lacquer adventure, as cheesy as that sounds.
No, I get it. So what kind of specializations are we talking about?
RoleCatcher highlights a bunch. You could become the go-to expert for restoring antique furniture, or specialize in those high-tech automotive finishes, for example.
Wow, so you could really carve out a niche for yourself.
Right. They even mention niche fields like aerospace coatings.
Aerospace.
Yeah.
Now that's something I never would have thought of. Lacquer is truly everywhere.
And that aerospace thing really makes you think about how technology is changing this field, right?
Yeah, it's not just about mixing up some lacquer in a jar anymore.
Exactly. RoleCatcher really seems to highlight this tension between traditional craftsmanship and all this cutting-edge tech coming in.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Like, how do those two worlds even coexist?
That's the big question. And to be honest, I'm not sure I have a complete answer, but RoleCatcher definitely gives us some clues.
Like what?
Well, for one, they emphasize that the industry is changing rapidly. Automation is becoming more and more prominent.
Makes sense. Robots are everywhere these days.
Right. They talk about robotic arms handling those hazardous chemicals, AI-powered systems monitoring the color accuracy of finishes, all that jazz.
So what does that mean for someone who actually wants to be a lacquer maker? Do they need to become a robotics engineer on top of everything else?
It's a good question, and Thankfully, RoleCatcher doesn't suggest that you need to be a tech whiz to survive in this field.
That's a relief.
Right. But they do stress the importance of having some technical skills. It's not just about the artistry anymore.
So it's about finding that balance between the art and the technology.
It seems that way. They talk about the importance of adaptability, problem solving, being willing to learn new software, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. Technology is always changing, so you've got to be able to keep up.
Absolutely. They even have this whole section on how to tailor your CV to get past those AI gatekeepers.
Oh, wow. AI is involved in the hiring process, too.
Apparently so. They talk about how crucial it is to use the right keywords, mirroring the language that's used in job descriptions.
So you have to write your resume for a robot. That's wild.
It's the future, my friend. But RoleCatcher goes beyond just CV advice. They also provide a ton of potential interview questions, to help you prepare.
Oh, that's really helpful. What kind of questions do they suggest?
Well, some are technical, like about the different types of lacquer, application techniques, safety protocols, that sort of thing.
Sure, that makes sense. You got to know your stuff.
Exactly. But they also have these behavioral questions, things like problem solving, teamwork, how passionate you are about the field.
So they're really trying to get a sense of the whole person, not just your technical skills.
Absolutely. I think it's smart, actually, because technical skills can be taught, but having the right attitude and work ethic, that's harder to find.
Totally. But let's be honest, like any job, there are going to be some downsides, right?
For sure. RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from that. They talk about things like the limited demand compared to other fields, mass-produced alternatives, competition from bigger companies, that sort of thing.
Right. Those are definitely factors to consider. It's not all glamorous, custom finishes, and high-tech labs.
Not at all. And then, of course, there are the physical demands of the job, the potential health hazards. We talked about that earlier.
True, true. You have to be comfortable working with chemicals, potentially long hours, that sort of thing. Not for everyone.
Definitely not. But it sounds like for the right person, it could be a really rewarding career.
Someone who likes working with their hands, who appreciates the history and the artistry of lacquer, but who's also excited about where the field is headed.
Exactly. It's like this interesting blend of old and new. But beyond just landing the job, RoleCatcher also talks about the importance of continuous learning in this field.
Continuous learning. What do they mean by that?
Well, new technologies are emerging all the time, new materials. There are new sustainability concerns to consider.
Right, so you always have to be learning and adapting to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher actually provides a bunch of resources to help you do just that. They have links to industry publications, online courses, information on workshops and conferences.
So they're not just helping you find a job, they're helping you build a career.
Exactly. And it got me thinking, RoleCatcher focuses so much on these traditional manufacturing settings, but I wonder if there are other paths out there for lacquer makers.
You mean like outside of the big factories?
Exactly. And made me think about the whole DIY movement,
Yeah.
and how there's this renewed interest in craft and handmade goods.
Oh, for sure. People are always looking for something unique, something with a story behind it.
Right. So could a skilled lacquer maker tap into that market? Maybe set up their own workshop, specialize in restoring vintage furniture, or create custom finishes for like boutique guitar makers, that sort of thing.
It's an interesting thought. They'd be more like artisans than factory workers.
Exactly. And with platforms like Etsy and Instagram, it's never been easier to reach a global audience for that kind of work.
True, true. You could build a whole brand around your skills, but it would take a lot of hustle, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely. It wouldn't be easy. But then again, no career path worth pursuing ever is, right?
Very true. But hey, if you're passionate about something, you find a way to make it work.
Couldn't agree more. And this whole deep dive has really made me appreciate the dedication and skill that goes into being a lacquer maker. Whether they're working in a high-tech factory or a small independent workshop, they're all contributing to this amazing craft.
Absolutely. It's a blend of art and science, tradition and technology.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of lacquer making. It's been fascinating.
It has. I learned a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
Big thanks to RoleCatcher for providing such insightful resources. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time.